Alright, let me start with this because this is the part that should make you pause immediately. U.S. military personnel are now taking shelter in hotels. Let that sink in for a second. Not base, not fortified compound, hotels, office building, temporary surveilling locations. That's where thousands of U.S. troops are now staying because the actual military base have been hit so hard they are no longer safe to operate from. And honestly, that's not something most people ever expected to hear. Because when you think of the US military, you think of the most protected, most advanced defensive systems in the world. You think bunkers, layers of security, missile defense systems. You don't think of soldiers having to find shelter in hotels just to stay operational. But that's exactly what happening right now. At least 13 U.S. bases across the Middle East have been struck repeatedly by Iran and allies groups, and these aren't minor hits. Officials are describing some of these bases as all but inhabitable. That means infrastructure is damaged, systems are down, and staying there becomes more dangerous than living. So now you got thousands of troops relocating, and the only immediate options in some areas has been hotels. And here's where it starts to feel uncomfortable, because the moment troops move into hotels, those hotels becomes targets. And that's not hypothetical. There has already been a reported drone swarm attack on hotels in Erbil, Iraq, especially where U.S. personnel were staying. So now the battlefield isn't just military zones anymore. It's bleeding into civilian spaces. And think about the difference here. A military base is built for war, reinforced structures, control access, defense system layered on tops of each other's. A hotel's glass window, people entrance, minimal protection, not real defense against drones or missiles. So yes, troops are being spread out, but they're also becoming more exposed at the same time. Now let's talk about how this even got to this point. Iran hasn't just been launching random strikes. According to the reports, they've been targeting very specific systems, radar installations, missile tracking system, air defense infrastructures. That's not random damage. That's strategic. That's about weakening detections and response capability first, then applying pressure. And the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps even released satellite image claiming they destroyed key U.S. radar systems. That's not just the physical damage, it's about sending a message. They can see and disable what protects this base. Now add another layer to this. Iranians linked groups are reportedly encouraging civilians to report the locations of U.S. troops, especially those staying in hotels and private accommodations. They are claiming around 11,000 U.S. personnel are in these kinds of locations. So now we got troops in softer environments, and their positions may not even stay hidden. That changes the entire dynamics of this conflict. From strategy standpoint, the U.S. is using dispersal, spreading forces out to avoid a single large strike taking out a major base. And on paper, that makes sense, but in reality, what's happening is a trade-off. You reduce the risk of one big hit, but you increase the numbers of smaller, more vulnerable targets. And that's the tensions in this whole situation. Because publicly, officials are saying everything is under control. Defense Secretary Pete Hassett says the operation called Operation Epic Furies is progressing as planned. He points out that over 7,000 targets have been struck, and another commander said Iran attack volumes has dropped significantly. So the message is everything is on track, but at the same time, troops are taking shelter in hotels, and those two realities doesn't fully align if everything was completely stable. On top of that, there's criticisms coming from inside the system. Some officials are saying early warnings measures weren't taken seriously enough. Things like reducing embassy staffing, issuing travel alerts, and hardening key installations before the retaliations began. So now adjustments are happening in real time under pressure. And if you zoom out for a second, this doesn't look like a controlled environment. It looks like a shifting battlefield. The U.S. adapts by spreading force out. Iran adapts by targeting vulnerabilities and tracking movements. And in the middle of that, the lines between militaries and civilian space starts to blur, especially when troops are operating out of hotels. And historically, that's when situations tends to escalate, not calm down. So the real questions right now isn't just who ahead, who's behind. It's this: if military personnel are now taking shelter in hotels, is that making them hardest to hit or quietly making them easiest to find? Because from where this stands right now, the risk didn't disappear, it's just changed locations.